Hey, good morning.
Morning, Razor.
Firstly, the injury situation. Can we just start by checking how players are? Bruno, Saint-Maximin and Wilson, any chance they'll be involved this weekend?
Well, everyone's improved. I'll leave my team news to the time when we get it. It's been a slightly difficult period for us, but hopefully we're coming out of that. So yeah, they're big players for us. We need them back quickly.
Did the fact that you didn't have a game last weekend help players who've been out get fitter?
Well, I think naturally when you've got a couple of injuries that we did have, more time is beneficial. So yeah, but obviously the circumstances around that game being cancelled were immensely sad.
And there were no games last weekend, but this weekend football is back and you'll be able to pay tribute to the Queen. Why is it important? How is it important for football to come together and do that?
Well, I think that's the beauty of football in moments like this, and national mourning for the Queen. And I think the beauty of football is that we do get a chance to come together as a nation up and down the country and pay tribute to the fantastic life she had and what she did for our country. And I think that's what football does best, I think.
Moving back to football, and you've recently brought in Loris Karius as cover on a short-term deal after Cardale had picked up an injury. Can you just explain how you got to that point where you chose Karius in particular and how bad the injury to Darlow is?
The injury to Darlow was a real strange how he picked it up. He was just doing goalkeeping training with 2 or 3 goalkeepers and normal shot action and just twisted his ankle. So yeah, then of course with that news and our 25-man squad still being open at that stage, we decided it was wise to move for someone with experience who could complement the goalkeepers we have, and Loris was the outstanding candidate when we looked at the goalkeepers available, which was quite a small pool. But he's a really good age. He's had some incredible experiences in his career, and he's come in and trained very well. And
could there be opportunities for him to play, or certainly push Nick Pope, but I'm sure you want to get out there and show you what he can do as well?
Well, you don't want to bring someone in who doesn't want to play and who can't play, so he can do both, and he's pushing. He's trained, as I say, very well. I think there's been a period where he hasn't had that day-to-day contact with the team, so I think he's improved and got better with every training session that we've had, and certainly he's been really good with the team.
This weekend will be the first time since leaving Bournemouth that you've come up against them as a manager. I know the game was at St James's rather than on the south coast, but does it have a bit of a different feel for you and maybe the staff who were with you for all those years at Bournemouth?
Yeah, I think certainly it's not just about me, the staff as well. We've got a lot of people who've got a lot of connections with the club. I personally feel a huge sense of gratitude to the club, to everyone connected with the club during my time there. I wouldn't be sat in this position now if it wasn't for AFC Bournemouth, and yeah, I just want to say a big thank you to everyone there. And obviously we're competing to win the game and desperate to do so. But it will be a special game for us.
And since leaving, have you had the opportunity, have you been minded to look back on what you built and what you achieved there with the support of the people around you with an even greater sense of accomplishment?
I'm not. I do look back from time to time in terms of my work, but in terms of sitting down and thinking about what we did, no, I'm not that way inclined at this stage of my career. For me, it's always about the next achievement rather than looking back. Hopefully I get grey and old, and there will come a time when I probably will look at it differently, but at the moment it's about the future and it's about tomorrow.
And lastly, Scott Parker left after their heavy defeat by Liverpool. Gary O'Neill has been in interim charge since then, and he's picked up a draw and a win from his 2 games. So what have you made of the way that the players and the club have responded to the managerial change?
Yeah, very impressive. I think Gary I know from my time at Portsmouth, so we were players briefly together because I didn't play too much due to injuries, but he's someone that I've known and respected all my football life really. He's come in and done a very good job because Scott had done an incredible job. What happened there happened. Gary comes in with Sean Cooper and Tommy Elphick, who I know very well, and they've galvanised the group. And you can see from 2-0 down against Nottingham Forest to then turn that around and win 3-2 takes team spirit and that togetherness that I believe Bournemouth have always had. It's been one of the core strengths, and we're going to need to guard against that tomorrow.
Thanks, Eddie.
Thank you.
Keith?
Eddie, you mentioned Tommy Elphick there. Who's all still there at Bournemouth from your time? Is there anyone left?
Steve Fletcher's always there. He'll touch wood, hopefully, and never leave. So there's a few constants there that brilliant people that have got Bournemouth in their hearts, and I think every club needs that. We have people here, players, staff that have been here a long, long time, and the football club is their life, and people like that really make the club, in my opinion. So there's a few people there who I haven't really stayed in contact with a great deal, because for me, difficult in my position, you move on, you have to move on and sever ties, really, but they're still sort of with me and in my heart in some way.
I remember one game, I can't remember, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, when Bournemouth came up to Newcastle. I think you got a late winner, and I remember the touchline, the away bench just absolutely exploding, and you all ran into the pitch, and it just seemed such a big moment. Can you remember coming up to places like Newcastle as Bournemouth manager, and what you thought of it as a challenge back then, and I suppose what they'll face this weekend?
Yeah, I do remember that game very well. Steve Cook scored, I think, an injury time, and for us at that moment, I don't think we'd started the season particularly well, so I think that was a big moment and sort of shaped our season, really. But we always had that togetherness, and when we went to the bigger clubs and the bigger stadiums, there was always a sense of, can we upset and use the fact that no one really talked about us in any way to our advantage. We certainly won't underestimate Bournemouth in any way, whether it be their players, staff, the club. We know it's going to be a very difficult game.
In terms of Karius, obviously things didn't end well for him in England when he played here the last time. Do you sense that he's probably got a point to prove after that?
I haven't really gone into any depth of his career with him yet. He's only been here a minimal time. Every player, I think, that comes in has a point to prove. Depends how you look at it. We certainly want to help him get to the best levels that he's capable of. From what I've seen in training, I've been very impressed by him. Not just his performances, but his conduct and how he's carried himself. And he's fitting into a group that have got a really good feel about them, so he's fitted into that really well.
And over the last week, obviously things have been a bit different. Have you done anything differently around here in terms of training? Have you given the players time off, and have you had to be there to support the players as well, and what for some might be a difficult time?
Our training weeks not looked dissimilar. Obviously we took the game out, but we trained well before we gave them a couple of days off. We trained well before that, and then we've trained really well after. So for me, there was no major relaxation. It was continue to work on our team ethics and understanding and team performance. So hopefully the break won't have done us any harm in that respect. And yeah, we're always there for our players on an emotional level.
And just finally, you've got another 2 players again in the England squad in the shape of Trippier and Pope, unexpectedly. Obviously, if things go well, they would like to think they'll be in that squad for the World Cup. How good would it be to have at least 2 Newcastle players in that England squad, because it's been a while for Newcastle players to reach that level? Yeah,
it's great to see players excel club level and then take that form into the international stage. Now, those 2 players you mentioned are passionate about playing for their country. They want to be there. They want to go to the World Cup. They're desperate to do so, but they know that their performances here will dictate that. So I think at the moment both of them are in a really good place. I think they perform well, and hopefully that continues.
Thanks,
Andy.
Morning, Eddie. Obviously it was one of those real where were you moments last Thursday when the news came through of the Queen's passing. I just wonder what the atmosphere and the mood was like around this place, because I imagine you were here when the news came through. What was it like?
I don't think we were here as the news broke, but I think the next day, there was a somber mood. I think there was a lot of talk internally about the reign of the Queen and everything that she encompassed in her life. There's a lot of respect internally here.
We were speaking to Dan Byrne a couple of weeks ago, and he said one line that really stuck with me: that intensity is now our identity at Newcastle United. Given the last few days without a match day, how much has that helped that mantra ahead of tomorrow, would you say?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, players quoting things.
Is that your quote?
No, it's just interesting what sticks in their brains. But no, it's a good thing. They're taking in things that we're trying to implement with them, and they're taking it in a level that is a deep level. And I think that's really important, that the players understand what we want to be. They know what I want them to deliver on a match day, and then if they open that up to you, that's fine. So yeah, no, all good from my perspective.
Obviously, a lot from the last time we sat down in this room and spoke was about that attitude, the us against them approach. We talked about how it kind of benefits the players. How well do you think that suits the city of Newcastle as well as the club?
I don't know. It's very difficult for me to speak on behalf of the city. I just think from our perspective here, we know that every time we go onto a pitch to compete against an opponent, it is us against them. It's can we impose our style and philosophy on them? Can we do everything it takes within us to win the game? Are we united as a group? Is everyone going in the same direction for success? I think those things I can control to a degree and try and implement. For the city, I think that's a difficult one. I can't speak on behalf of the people.
Just one another player, Alex Isak. He was talking to us about how he's been exchanging a few texts with Alan Shearer. Obviously, every single club has legends, but how important is it for this club to have legends who connect with the current players and reach out like Alan has clearly done with Alex?
Yeah, hugely important, I think. I think Newcastle's history is littered with great players, great managers, icons of the club. And I think it's very important that we embrace them, embrace that idea, and try and bring them closer, not just to the players, but to the club, to feel like they can come and see us, that we want them here, we want to embrace what they did in the past. And then we want our players to then want to be the next one in line, then the next one that everyone looks to and remembers fondly. I think it's a very important part of a club's culture that happens. I will certainly be pushing that internally here.
And just one on Bournemouth. Obviously, you went through so much there. You went through so many experiences, so many highs, a few lows as well. I just wondered what the lesson you kind of learned as a man and a manager was that you've implemented the most here, that has benefited you most so far in your time at Newcastle.
I think I touched on it earlier. Very difficult to pick one thing, but I think the unity that we had in all of my teams, I'm talking now as a manager rather than as a player, the spirit, the feeling, the unity we had was the most important thing behind our successes and behind our rise really through the leagues. And I think when you go into any team, you can have unbelievable players, you can have brilliant facilities, but if you don't have that feeling between yourselves and that special relationship between each other, I don't think you can be the success that you want to be. So that's what we've tried to create.
And just finally, are they still the first results you look for on a Saturday or a weekend or not?
You know, I don't tend to look for results. I live in our result for a long, long time. So of course I'm aware of what's happening up and down the country, but for me it's all about this team.
Thanks, Eddie. Best luck tomorrow.
Thank you.
Hi Eddie, just a couple from me. Going into the game, the players will have confidence because they've largely been good performances so far this season. But will there also be a touch of frustration about getting that second win that will spur the team on further?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a feeling within us that there's a lot of frustration after the Crystal Palace game because the chances we created, the moments we had, the general momentum in the game just felt like a goal was coming at any stage and should have come, and it didn't. And it left us, after the game with an empty feeling, and I think the players are desperate to not have that same feeling again. So that's up to us. Loads of positives to take from the Crystal Palace game, but we need to win.
And that win before the break, I mean, that puts that bit of extra impetus, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a key stage because we've gone from a period where we had game after game in a really short period of time, and now with the break last week, we'll have one game in 4 weeks. So that one game you have in that spell, you want it to be a good one. You want it to leave everyone with good energy, positive thinking about what's going to happen beyond. So this is an important match for us.
And just finally, John Joe Shelby was named in the 25-man squad for the first half of the season. Does that mean that he could be fit before the World Cup? We
hope so, yeah. I mean, John Joe's making good progress. He's out on the grass, he's running. He's looking good, he's in a really good physical condition, he's looking after himself, so anticipate that hopefully it won't be too long.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, broadcasters. Prince. Jordan?
Just on the 25-man squad, you named 3 goalkeepers, obviously Caldwell's out injured. Is there a concern to say if Nick Pope or Lewis Carrius when he got injured, you only have one fit senior goalkeeper, or is there obviously a plan in place if that was to happen?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you're trying to juggle everything with when you have to name the 25-man squad. You can only make the decision to the best of your ability at that moment. So we looked at Carl won't be out long term. Carl, we anticipate will be back. I think it was diagnosed as a 6 to 8 week injury. We're hoping it's more 6 than 8, in which case he'll be available for a lot of games. And then you've got obviously Nick and Loris. So it's a difficult one. Of course, if you get injuries to those players, then you're going to be short. But we can only make the decision at the time that we that we can.
Cheers.
Ian?
Hi, Eddie.
Hi.
You're probably travelling down to the West Midlands on the day that Bournemouth lost 9-0 to Liverpool. You're clearly 100% committed to Newcastle, but there's a place in your heart for that club. What were your own thoughts when you heard that score?
God, I can't remember. Those results can happen. I think that's football. Anything can happen when you go into a game. The most important thing is how you react to it, and I think that's been the true test of the character of the club and the players in it. So they then kept a clean sheet against Wolves and came back and beat Nottingham Forest. So from after that game, they picked up 4 points in 2 tough fixtures. So as I say, in football, anything can happen at certain moments. It's always about how you react to that situation. They've done very well since then.
On a similar theme, a lot of fans are saying, on the evidence of the performances you've given so far, some opponents could be on the wrong end of a thrashing. Would you be quite happy if that thrashing came tomorrow? Bit of an unfair question, I know.
Yeah, look, ultimately we just want to win, and then of course you're greedy, you want to win, and then you want to win well. So that's the expectations that we set every week. At the moment, it's about trying to control our performance as I sit here now.
Matt?
I can understand you're not wanting to say too much about the 3 players who are pushing to come back, but what's their mood as they push to come back? Certainly, as 2 of them, Sam Maximum and Wilson, have had their injury problems the last year or so.
Callum never changes. Callum is very, very consistent. I've said before in this room, he's got a brilliant mentality to setbacks, disappointments, even positive. Score a hat-trick, he'll still be the same Callum. He won't deviate from that. He's been very focused on his work. He's been in a really good place. He's doing very well. So we're really pleased with him. And Alan too. So Alan's, I think, frustrated when he's injured. Naturally, he wants to play. That's his life. He loves training. He loves football. But he's worked really hard on his comeback. So I've been really pleased with him too.
Greg?
On Alexander Isak, Eddie, he had 2 contrasting games within the space of 4 days. The Liverpool game, he looked like he'd been a Premier League striker all his life, the way he finished with 2 goals, albeit one was disallowed. You perhaps struggled a little bit more on the Saturday. Is that to be expected? And you perhaps wouldn't have put him in if Callum had been fit, or have you spoken to him, and how do you compare his early impact?
Yeah, I think it's interesting to see how players adapt to a different team, a different league. I think Alex has done really, really well. The Liverpool game, as you say, he wasn't involved in the game a great deal, but the 2 standout moments were the 2 goals really. Obviously one didn't count, but they were standout moments for me, and it showed what he's capable of. The Palace game was a strange one, because I actually thought his overall performance probably compared to Liverpool was better, but he didn't have those 2 moments that caught everyone's imagination and eye. But I thought his all-round game was pretty good, and I think he gave little glimpses. Technically very good. He linked play really well a couple of times. He played a lovely pass for Joe Willock's chance late in the game. Yes, I've spoke with him. We've done a lot of work with him in this 2-week period, which has been really good for him actually, to build his fitness levels and his understanding of the team, and he's trained very, very well.
On Callum as well, the England squad was announced yesterday. Callum wasn't in for obvious reasons. Is that his World Cup chance gone, do you think?
I think I've learnt one thing: never try and predict what's going to happen in the future, and never write off Callum Wilson, because he, as I said, his mindset is incredible. So no, I don't think so. I don't think Callum believes so either. I think he will want to come back as quickly as possible and score goals.
Kieran?
Hi Eddie. I think it was Jose Mourinho said, depending on the club he was at, he'd wear their pyjamas. Do you feel very much a Newcastle man now?
Absolutely. It's a funny quote. I'm not going to try and twist his quote in any way. But I am here, and I'm immersed in the club. the city, the people. I've said many times it's difficult to enjoy, but in my own way I'm loving it. But management is not necessarily something you sit here and go, isn't this great? Because you're fighting challenges every moment. But this is an unbelievable football club.
And on the England squad, there's a player in there, Ivan Toney, who used to be here. I know you can't say much, but do you think there are things being put in place to prevent a situation like that happening again, where a player like that feels he has to go elsewhere to fulfil his potential?
Sorry, can you ask that again? I switched off momentarily. Apologies, I was somewhere else.
On the England squad there.
Yeah, it was. I was thinking of the quote.
There's a player there, Ivan Toney, who used to be at this club. He felt he had to leave here to fulfil his potential. Do you think there are being things put in place to prevent a situation like that happening again?
Yeah, it's a difficult one because every situation and every individual's career path is different. I'd love to think that wouldn't happen now, but again, that's not a criticism of anyone at that time, and why Ivan left, I don't know. But certainly when you watch him play now and you see his attributes and what he can bring to his team, he's an outstanding player. And I think the call-up's a great thing for people that go to the lower leagues, and gives them hope that it's not the end of their dreams. And he's had to work his way back up, and he's done incredibly well.
Okay, Chris, what?
More than any, obviously
Chris.
you mentioned against Palace that the team had a lot of chances to win the game, but also there was the goal that was disallowed, and subsequently the Premier League obviously came out and said some things about VAR. What have the conversations been like between the club and the Premier League and the PGMOL? Have you had any reassurances going forward about that changing?
Yeah, we've had quite a few discussions. It's always a difficult one to give you that. Have we had assurances it won't happen? You can't, because it's football, and there'll always be controversy and decisions that potentially you disagree with. I think it was good that they came out and admitted that it was a clear error. For me, it was a clear and obvious error right from the minute they disallowed the goal, and I only had my real-time eye on it. But I was adamant it was a goal. And you're hugely disappointed when you look back at it and you see a clear push in Joe's back, and you can see his momentum is clearly affected by that. So it was an incredible decision for in a negative way for us. And yes, we had loads of chances in the game and should have won the game ourselves, but that's a moment there where we've created pressure, we've scored a legitimate goal, and it's been taken away from us. So that was really cruel.
In terms of the way VAR has been implemented, were there suggestions that going forward that might sort of change the way that it's used?
Well, I think the views that the referees see, they have to be balanced. It can't, they have to give them every view that they have, and such a big call. And I don't think the referees saw the view where there was a clear push, which obviously affects the decision-making process. But not only that, I think the referee has to, when they go to the monitor, I think has to go with an open mind. They've made the decision at that moment live, so they have a gut feeling, and I think the gut feeling of the referee was right on this decision, and unfortunately he's listened to Lee Mason and the guys in the VAR studio, and that's changed his decision for a negative effect.
Okay, Martin Hardy.
Sorry, to go back to Callum, Eddie. Did you feel sympathy from yesterday when the squad is announced so close to the World Cup, and it's another centre forward getting all the attention that perhaps would be ahead?
Yes, yeah. I mean, of course, I feel for Callum because he's not in the squad. I feel for him because he's been injured. But you have to look to the future. For Callum, you can't sit there and dwell and go, poor me. He's not the type that's ever going to be like that, and I certainly wouldn't encourage him to ever think that way. He's had an unbelievable rise himself from non-league to the position that he's in. So I think he savours every moment rather than looks at negative situations. It will just fuel his motivation. It will just fire him even more. So when he returns to the team, he shows how good he is.
Just following that on, is there time for him to make the squad for the World Cup finals, and what does he have to do?
I think there's time. I'm a firm believer in him and his abilities, and I know Gareth is the same. What does he have to do? He has to return and score, and he has to be consistent in his availability, and then maybe he has to have a bit of luck somewhere else to make that play.
Okay. Oscar?
Eddie, you were talking about the unity and the spirit you had at Bournemouth as being as unique and special to what you achieved. Does it feel like you've got something similar here, comparable here already?
Yeah, I do, which when I came to the club was probably my biggest challenge. Is right, you've got to get the dressing room in a position where, as I say, everyone's going in the same direction. You don't have anyone going against the team. Everyone wants the team to succeed. Everyone's supporting each other, whether they're in the team or out the team. Everyone's fighting for each other. Everyone's giving more, and I think we've built a culture where the dressing room, the change room is doing those things. Now, that never stays constant, and so the challenge you have as a manager is through time and through lots of different challenges to try and keep that fabric together, and that's the most difficult part.
Yeah, how difficult will that be going forward with new players coming in? Obviously at Bournemouth, a bit of an underdog story, the finances here different, new players from around the world. How difficult to maintain that?
That's the challenge.
Yeah.
It's not impossible. You can do it. Your recruitment has to be very good. You have to get the right people into the club. You have to stay away from possible things that can challenge that. But ultimately, you do need to freshen things up as well. So it's a very delicate balance.
Lee Ryder?
Hi, Eddie. Obviously, the 9-0 is centred around the conversations in this room already this morning. Is it a dangerous mentality to think that Bournemouth are capable of another heavy defeat like that, and do you have to keep the players sort of at a set level?
Our players have got no worries or question marks against their mentality going into the game. We know it's going to be a very, very difficult game. That 9-0 game was a one-off. If you actually watch the game, it wasn't a 9-0 game. It was every shot Liverpool had went in. It was one of those days where everything sort of seemed to go against the team. I've been part of teams and games like that, and that has no relevance to this game tomorrow. As I said, the reaction's the key thing. Bournemouth were a very good team.
I think when you were Bournemouth manager, you come up here and beat Newcastle in 2016. It was quite a toxic atmosphere then. There's a nice wave of optimism around the place at the moment, and it just feels at the minute, win, lose or draw, you're going to have the back of the fans. That must be brilliant to take into work every day.
Yeah, it's an incredible power for us at the moment. Our home crowd is so energetic. There's a great energy, there's a great feel. And as I said, we need to harness that and keep that and embrace that to its fullest. And we're only going to do that with the correct mentality in every minute, from the minute the game kicks off, to show our supporters we're here to do all the right things for them. I remember that game, and I remember the feel of the ground not being that. So as an away team, that's what you want. You're coming and you're going, well, we want that feeling, that negative feeling to explode and use it to your advantage. So obviously now when I'm here, sat here in this position, you want the total opposite, and in the moment we have that from our supporters, and it's greatly appreciated.
Just finally on Bruno, whether he plays or not, you might be able to educate us on it. Does he have the permission to go to Brazil to speak to their medical team?
Yeah, so we've been in contact with their medical team, so we've had really good communication between both parties. They're obviously very interested in Bruno's situation and how he is, so no, there's been open communication between us and them.
Eddie, do you think you're a better manager than you were at Bournemouth, and how do you just sort of view yourself as having improved from when you...
Very, very difficult to judge, and I don't say that with any hidden message. I think it's very difficult. I'd love to think I have, but I always think the players are the best judge of that, not me. I could sit here and say yes or no, but every day I sort of have to prove myself to the players in terms of my work and my dealings with them and my communication, etc., and what messages I give. So I am working hard to improve, and I've always had that mentality as a player and as a manager. I've never changed. I sort of sit in my very few moments of stillness and I go, right, I want to get better. How can I improve? And as I said, I've done that as a player and as a manager. It doesn't change. I've just got that brain that is never happy with my level now. So finding new ways to do that as you get older and have more experience becomes harder. But I'm still on that journey to get better.
Just on the England stuff as well, Nick Pope gets a chance to potentially play for England next week. He's been brilliant for you. if he plays, if he does that, it's a huge motivation for him because he could potentially go into the World Cup with breathing down the neck of Jordan.
Yeah, I think he's shown for us this year how good he can be. He has kept goal so well. I mean, his distribution, everything, crosses, shot stopping, been at the highest level. So I can't speak highly enough of him, but also as a character in and around the players. The players love him. He's got a very dry sense of humour. He's a very funny guy. He's got a big presence. So when he walks into a room, you know he's there. He's very popular, as I say, in the dressing room. Players love him, so he's settled in really well.